if buying links isn't you're saying, if I understood you correctly, that you don't believe that's incredibly valuable. And I guess I should quantify buying links, because there's many methods to buy links. You can go buy spammy links, or you can buy links on high quality blogs in relevant contextual content that are linking back to you. And I got to believe that's a value. But what is your particular strategy? Because getting links is ridiculously labor intensive if you're trying to do it organically, and you're going to get told no 99.9% of the time. So How do you get them?
Yeah, so we try to do things that earn them, and there's been a lot of research. I haven't done the research itself, but I've been relying on it. But research, data, studies, that kind of stuff generates tons and tons of links. So do a survey of your target audience and ask them what their biggest pain point is. Ask them what their salary is. Some of that kind of stuff. We did a piece of content. It was I'm allowed to divulge it. They've given me the permission, but GE Healthcare is trying to sell AI-driven functional MRI machines, which cost $2 million to radiologists. They created series and series of content about the benefits of AI-driven functional MRI machines that got like zero engagement, because radiologists are really busy. And radiologists are also, it turns out, really superficial. And so what we found is that radiologists' number one concern is how much money they make. And guess what? It's probably the number one concern for all of us. We created a radiologist salary guide. We didn't even mention MRI machines. And it was the most viral piece of content GE ever created. So, those are the kinds of things that generate great links when you can do any kind of research. We just pulled the data right off of Glassdoor. It's all publicly available kind of stuff. So you can fake your way into a really relevant piece of content that can generate links. So that's one thing that we do. We do trends, we do insights, we do research, we do infographics. But another thing, like I said, so we have a team of 30 writers. And for some of our top clients, some of our writers do publish on Entrepreneur Magazine or Fast Company or whatever. And I'll say, hey, can you throw client A or B into a relevant story? You pick if you think whatever article you think might be helpful. But if you can do that once a month, I'll pay you for your time to write that guest post. So we do that, but I always tell my clients, I wouldn't say that there's a return on investment to it. I think it's good for you. I just don't know that I would ever, I wouldn't charge them to do it. We do it as a value add because it's sort of an activity that's already happening. We do it to promote our writers and to pay for their time to build their own profile and their own, writing chops. But I just wouldn't recommend an ROI driven business person to invest in paid link strategies.
So let's unpack the process of actually creating a content a little bit. So you mentioned you've got 30 writers. You mentioned you do keyword research. So walk me through hey, we've done some keyword research. We've got our list of 50. We figured out we're going to write about, this one or these ones. Mm-hmm. And at the other end of that is I have an article that's published. What happens in between there?
So it's a lot simpler than most people think. Because we get, and I just got off of one earlier today. Hey, we're in the food logistics industry. Do your writers how do I know and can I be confident that your writers are experts in the food logistics industry? And I was like, trust me, anyone that's an expert in the food logistics industry is probably not a good writer. And so what we've done is we've found great writers who also are really good at doing research, quick research. So the process is pretty simple. They take the focus keyword we identified, they look at the buyer intent behind the headline that we've created, and they Google it. And they look at the top 10 things, the things that show up on the first page, and they speed read every single one of them. It takes them about 20 minutes. They read the top 10 listings on all of those articles. They look at a video or two. They might look at the news, tab in Google search results for that focus keyword. In that 15 minutes, they get a pretty good sense for what that topic is, what the main components are, and how they need to craft an expert level article, at least one that reflects the top search rankings. And so, it may not be as deep as, some folks need. And in some cases, we we'll do expert interviews, or we'll go to 2 or 3 pages deep, or we'll look only for relevant content that's been published in the last 6 months. But for the most cases, just a simple Google search and 15 minutes of reading gets our writers all the information they need to craft the article.
So now we've got an article. Hopefully it's content that's compelling enough to allow us to earn some links. How are you initially, because, if a tree falls in the forest, does anybody know? How are you promoting that particular piece of content? Are you amplifying it with paid media? Are you putting it on, I'm assuming obviously you're putting it on your social channels, but the problem with that is you're only going to see only the people who already follow you are going to see that. So how are you putting it out into the wild?
Yeah. So we don't do social for our clients. What we do, especially for agencies, is we connect our founders, our client founders, to. We use Hootsuite. We have the business account for Hootsuite, so we get this feature for free, so anybody could do it. But we connect their LinkedIn account to their RSS feed. So every day that a new article publishes, Joe Smith, the CEO of agency ABC, it looks like he's naturally publishing or sharing that on LinkedIn. So we do that for a number of our clients. We actually have a client who said they had a lead in the first 2 weeks of doing that because they weren't really active on LinkedIn. And the first time somebody saw an article, it was actually their founding story. They saw somebody they were connected with. They were like, I had no idea you started an agency that does this. This is exactly what I need. So it was kind of a great validation for him and for us. But, for a lot of B2B agencies, we find that's, LinkedIn is really the only game in town. I'm pretty active on Twitter. I have a contractor that shares 12 times a day on Twitter. About 4% of my traffic to my website comes from Twitter. I don't think I've ever gotten a single lead from it. So, it's kind of like, I'm in the game, so I got to play the game, but I don't know that I see a lot of value in it. On the consumer side, Facebook, Instagram, I guess, have value more for, I think, direct to consumer type applications, but I don't know of a single, sort of B2B software company, agency, anyone selling to other businesses that has ever seen any value from Facebook and Instagram. But again, I automate that as well. I think I have an automation in Hootsuite to my Facebook company page. So, I share out there every once in a while, somebody likes it, but it's, again, so I go back to that stat, 3%, 4% of company website traffic comes from social. I wouldn't spend more than 3 or 4% of your time on it. So we really focus on the organic. I mean, that's where 75% of traffic comes from. A way to boost that in the beginning is try to get, a newsletter going, get all your clients on the newsletter, ask any prospect that you've ever talked to, your own personal database to join your newsletter. Make the content that your newsletter is sharing, share worthy. But in the early days, obviously there's not a lot of folks with eyes on it, but it, takes one step to kind of complete a journey of 1,000 miles.
So for someone who doesn't have a newsletter list, they don't have a way to tap into that traffic on demand, as it were. You mentioned connecting the RSS feed to LinkedIn. What's the difference between that and simply just saying, hey, I'm writing a post on LinkedIn and putting a link? I wrote this great article. Here's the link to this article.
The thing is time. I mean, you mentioned it. I feel like I'm doing everything, right? Founders don't have time to do anything. So we automate the process. Hootsuite does a pretty good job. If you look at my LinkedIn, you'll see I shared, an article this morning that I published last night. And it looks pretty natural, but I didn't touch it. It was completely automated. So, so that's really the difference.
All right. So before we wrap up, within the context of today's discussion, what haven't we talked about that we should?
Yeah. I mean, I think, where's the value? Is really an important question. And so one of the things that I know companies are too early for us is if they haven't figured out a way to generate something of value from their website. For most companies, it's a contact us form, which, I don't know if you're like me, 99.9% of my contact us inquiries are spam, people looking for links, people looking to sell their own stuff. So that's not a great one. Software companies that we work with, click here to get a demo or a test drive or talk to a salesperson. That's a pretty valid one. For a lot of companies, what we do is we sort of growth hack our way into a downloadable guide We take the first 10 articles or so and we bundle them up into an ebook. And then we put that on a landing page that you have to register with an email address for. And that's a great way to generate at least start building a list. And usually we'll look at doing something like the ultimate guide to whatever it is that your company does. But having that sort of conversion point is important to be in place before we start working with a company. Otherwise, we're building traffic for traffic's sake, which has no real value.
Sorry, I've been muting my microphone on and off because the construction noises downstairs have been absolutely ridiculous. So I spoke without my mic unmuted. So that's where figuring out what that lead magnet should be is where what I talked about earlier when I'm talking about these pain statements, these high impact tests. And I use Facebook for it, even though I'm B2B, and it works very, very well because of the fact that people are scrolling and you're interrupting and it either resonates or it doesn't. But there's no learning what I've learned now. I would never, ever guess at what YouTube video should I make next or what lead magnet should I make next for literally like $25 within 24, even less than that. Typically my experiments are done in 4 to 5 hours. I would know exactly if I pick 10 topics or 10 pain statements, I would see a very clear winner out of those 10 for a whopping $25. And let me tell you, that's a very, very good use of $25 in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure.